What's the Krishna conscious perspective on ecology? So you might think there's one perspective and I'm going to explain it. But I'm going to explain something different. I'm going to explain how our nature as ecologists or not so ecology conscious affects what we believe the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is on ecology. We made another video how we said that sometimes we look at Shastra, but we may not understand Prabhupada's heart about that particular aspect of Shastra, so we may view it differently. Well, here's another example of how we can view Shastra differently, although we're looking at the same philosophy, but we're filtering it through a different, you could say, conditioning or worldview. There was a professor, I believe his name is David Gaberman, and he studies Braj. It's a nice thing to study if you're a professor. If you're thinking of becoming an academic, that's something you may want to study. So anyway, he was interested in ecology, and he wrote some books on ecology. And he wrote he did one study on the Jamuna, and he asked various Vaishnavas, what about the Jamuna? It's contaminated. This was 10 years ago when Jamuna water was just now in Vrindavan wastewater, industrial wastewater. What do you think about Jamuna? And he was specifically looking for an answer from an ecological standpoint. So just to give you a little history, the water of Jamuna was diverted, and it was now being used to rice paddy fields. And the actual water that was coming to Vrindavan was totally industrial wastewater. There was no Jamuna water left. It's now changed. That's good. But at one point, this was the reality. So some Vaishnavas said, Jamuna is Jamuna, she's always pure. And they were just totally in denial that there was even any wastewater there. There was like no consideration of maybe there's wastewater, maybe we should do something. No consideration, just Jamuna is always pure, she can't be contaminated. End of story. Don't worry about it. There's nothing to do. Interesting answer, considering that it's all wastewater. The second group of answers was the Jamuna water is contaminated, but Jamuna Devi herself can never be contaminated. She's always pure. Okay, philosophically correct, but he was questioning the state of consciousness in terms of practical action. But there was no consideration that we should do anything. It's just, no, she's pure. She's not affected by the impurity, but yes, the water is impure. And that was it. There was no consideration that anything should be done. And the last group was said that Jamuna is our mother, and our mother has been polluted, and we should do something about it. So clearly, the last group were more what you could call eco-activists by nature. So they were looking at the same thing, the same river Jamuna, the same contaminated river, but they were in the activist mood, that something has to be done about this. Interesting, right? So we're looking at the same thing, but according to who we are, more ecologically active or less ecologically active or less ecologically aware or interested, however you want to put it, there's a different reaction to the same thing. There's a different view to the same thing. No, Jamuna's contaminated, we have to do something. No, Jamuna's contaminated, but she's not contaminated, and Jamuna's not contaminated, which then obviously you're not going to do anything about. So what do we understand from this? Well, we understand that we are individuals, and according to who we are in our nature, we tend to filter reality through those filters. Even the reality of Sat, the truth, gets filtered, as we just saw here, and many things can get filtered. So be aware of your filters. Become more aware, become more knowledgeable of the connection of Vaishnavism to the world, and how also we want to portray ourselves to the world. The last thing I want to say is really interesting. Don't go away. You're going to love this. I heard this from Radhika Raman Prabhu. He's been teaching religious classes for over 10 years. At least at the time I heard this, it was over 10 years in 4 different universities. And he said he observed that when he teaches various religions in his classes, the students identify, or the students identify with religions in a positive way, or could conceive of being part of religion based on two principles: how they treat their women and how they treat the environment. So it's something to take into consideration as those who are spreading Krishna consciousness. How we relate to the environment is going to affect a lot of people in how they relate to Krishna consciousness. Just dropping some seeds in there for you to consider, not making any philosophical statements about it, but just this is something, at least in the West, that students are thinking right now, today. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari.